Hi, today we have the Willsound MK1s, and surprise surprise, we're doing earbud reviews now. And we were only able to do this because Willsound approached us and they asked us to do a review, and we agreed to do this review as long as we were allowed to say anything that we wanted to say about the Willsound MK1s. And this is what I think of them. Right. So TLDR, the Wilson Mark 1 sound extremely forward. They're just the most forward sounding earbuds I've ever heard. They're W-shaped, huge mid bass, emphasized mids, some sparkle in the treble, quite a bit spicy I would say. And yeah, they're quite wide sounding but not as much front to back. So now to go more into detail of what I think of the sound. So as per usual, we start off with bass. Sub bass on the Willsound Mark 1s is there. There's not much of it. I barely hear any rumble or slam on the sub bass of the Willsound Mark 1s. You might like that. I like a bit more sub bass personally. And this, I think, I just I think it's sort of an issue also with the format of earbuds in general because they don't really have a good seal. In order for them to have any amount of sub bass, it requires quite an emphasis in the driver, and at least based on my experience, earbuds with huge sub bass usually have very uncontrolled bass. But now going to the mid bass, now this is where I'm a bit conflicted. So for me, the mid bass in the Wilson Mark 1s is actually a bit too much. They punch very hard, but without much detail. And the punch that is given out by the Wilson Mark 1s are a bit blunt, I would say. I'm not able to quite describe this, but if you've ever heard an earbud and an IEM that sounds similar, there's this sort of earbud timbre that just some people like. I personally don't. That just feels like it's a bit different. It punches differently. Uh, it's more like a how to say this? It sounds more like a huge slam than a particular note being hit in the bass. So if you just like to listen to very hard EDM and you like to feel the sensation of getting punched in the ears, you might like these. But I'm personally not a fan. Personally not a fan. Detail retrieval, as I've mentioned, isn't the best also in the bass. There's not much texture or definition in the bass. But one thing that it does have is it's not the slowest earbud bass I've ever heard. So it can still catch up to some a bit like medium to fast music. But something like Dragon Force, it obviously falls behind. So if you're planning to listen to metal on these, don't. Right. So now we're going to the mid-range. So the mid-range here is what Willsound is a bit more proud about. Actually not a bit. This is actually what they tuned the Willsound Mark 1s to be about. So they wanted the Willsound Mark 1s to be an all-rounder, more vocal-oriented earbud. So they wanted audiophiles who like their vocals to be also be able to listen to some more all-rounder sounding songs, and they don't have to switch earbuds just because they want to listen to different types of songs. So the mid-range here I think is the best part of the Wilson Mark ones. The I just really like guitar strums here for some odd reason. um, I think this is one of the better, not better even. I think this is one of the best sounding mid-range in earbuds that I've heard in terms of guitar strums. So on the mid, lower mids to mid-range sort of region, I think this is one of the more pleasant kinds. I think it has a bit of a thicker note. I think it might be a bit too thick, and there's definitely bass bleed into the mid bits. So if you listen to some vocal oriented sounds with lots of bass, uh, it's going to be sound a little bit thicker than you're probably used to. So it might disturb you in that sense. But if you listen to songs like J-pop and such, or Japanese, what's it called, audiophile songs, you'll have no issues there because they usually have less bass. So the mid range will just be fine. But yeah, but one issue I have with the Willsound MK1's mid-range is that going from the mid-range to the upper mids to the treble, there is some ringing happening in like the not 5, I think 6 to 7K region, which just kind of goes into the mid-range also. So some female vocals just tend to sound a bit shrilly to me. Um, I consulted Brian, he didn't hear this, so this might just be me and my oversensitive ears. But if you are sensitive to the upper mid to the treble region, this might be an issue for you. I think, yeah, I think that's adequate description for the mid-range. Oh, I forgot to mention, detail on the wheel sounds are, I would say, just average. It's not the best detail I've ever heard on earbuds. But yeah, separation is also okay. But yeah, not much. I don't have much to say. I just really like guitar strums on these. Nothing else really stood out to me. Male focus were okay, but yeah, I just really like the feeling of the guitar strums on the Willsound MK1s. You'll have to experience them yourselves. But aside from that, nothing much stands out in the mid range for me. Now going to treble, so treble, as I've previously mentioned in the mid-range section, so treble, there's something going on in this 6-7K region which is a bit too spicy for me. So listen to something like EDM, uh, maybe something like Alan Walker or something. Um, some cymbals and such just are a bit too hot for me. Um, and again, Brian didn't face this, so he might not face this, but treble itself I think has quite good detail or perceived detail because of how emphasized the treble is, and I think extension is also good enough. uh, I was able to still clearly hear above 13-14K, and my hearing stops at 17K right now. So yeah, but I use the tone generator to actually listen to anything above 15K because I don't have lots of music where they have 15K plus in the treble region, right? So then, but the treble doesn't have lots of air because of how forward it is. So this also carries on into my description of the soundstage and imaging, which is what we're going to be talking about next. So if this were my head, the wheel sounds, so this, if this were the front of my head, the wheel sounds to sound quite wide. So earbuds naturally, because they don't have any isolation or any of the kind, they will sound bigger. They will sound wider than IEMs per se. But the wheel sounds oddly only have, they have very wide left and right, but not much front and back. So sound just feels like it's going in this area. So the center image in my head feels like it's about here, which I find to be a bit odd. And I think that's just mostly because of how forward sounding the wheel sounds are. The problem with this is that this affects imaging very hard. So imaging on the Willsound MK1s are not the greatest. I was able to, at best, pinpoint to 45-degree accuracy. At worst, I was only able to determine in 3 regions like left, right, and front. At worst. So 60%, no, 60-degree accuracy. At worst. Yeah. So I think it sounds, if you're looking for a huge soundstage, looking for accurate imaging, I don't think the MK1s will be for you. Right. So now we'll talk about isolation. None of it. Build quality. I think there's not much to say about build quality because see so earbuds in general, especially in this price range. So I haven't mentioned price range by the way. So the Willsound MK1s are being sold at 500,000 IDR. So I think that goes for like $35 US. I don't know how much it'll cost to ship overseas. So you might have to take those into account and tax and whatever. But locally here in Indonesia, these are being sold for 500,000 IDR, which is around $35 US. So earbuds in this price range usually have just the standard MX500 shell. So you see this type of shell everywhere. You see them in the Vidos, you see them in the Monk Pluses. All the shells are similar. There's not much variation in terms of shell. But yeah, I think the only different factor between this and those are just that they have the Willsound logo here, and that I think they're made of the same type of like plastic. Willsound did mention that the foam that they provide are a bit of a higher quality compared to the usual Chinese OEMs that you can get from AliExpress and such, and I can testify to that because these actually feel better than most of the foams I have. I don't think these are as good as something like the Hiegi foams from Japan, but those are very expensive. And I think these are they're soft and nice and thick, which might be a downside for you. I think I like these. And now there's not much to talk about aside from the cable and the jack. So the cable here is quite thick. I think it's quite thick. It's comparable to something like the Ibaso's cable, I believe, which I don't have one. Oh, I do have one hand right now. Hold on. So, right. So it's about the same in terms of. No, actually, it's actually thicker than the Ibaso cable, but it's also a bit stiffer. So the Ibaso cable are a bit softer. The cable on the Willsound Mark 1s are a bit stiffer, and they're actually quite heavy. So depending on how you use your earbuds, if you use them straight down, for me, what I find is that they tend to pull on my ears a bit too much, and they cause a bit of fatigue in that sense because of how heavy this cable is. But it sure does look nice. I don't hope they don't oxidize too quickly though. And yes, this is about how stiff they are. I don't know if this is a good way to show how stiff they are, but there's not much I can do about that. Right? They don't have any chin sliders. You'll probably have to hack your way around this. What I usually do, I just use some sort of like memory wire or something, and just pull it around and just pull it up if I need a chin slider. I don't know why it doesn't have a chin slider, but okay, I guess. And the headphone jack itself. So the jack itself is a straight jack, which if you've seen any of my previous videos, I am not a huge fan of. Brian thinks it's a marvelous feature to have straight jacks. I am more of a, if it's portable, you gotta have an angle jack, because if you plug it into your phone and you put it in your pocket, you don't want it to be just, pulling on your thing, right? That might just be me. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me to just have a straight jack on something that might be more mobile oriented. But okay, but at least it's a nice quality jack. It's quite heavy, and it hasn't really worn out its gold plating. Gold plating. I don't know if it's actually gold. So far from my usage and Brian's usage. Yeah. So now we'll do some comparisons. So comparisons, the easiest ones I can give you is between these, the V-Monks, the Willsound Mark 2s. So FYI, the Willsound Mark 2s that I have here, I have modded to MMCX. They still sound the same. I just got them modded. Okay, and I will compare them also to the Vidos. So I'm comparing to all of these to the Mark 2s because some of you might have heard them. The Vidos, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard them at some point in their lives if they're into earbuds. And same goes for the Monk Plus. Right, so we start with the Willsound Mark 2s. So the Willsound Mark 2s were more of a fun-oriented sounding earbud. And I think the Willsound Mark 2s are more V-shaped sound. And the mid-range is a lot further back in the mix compared to the Willsound Mark 1s. I like the bass of the Willsound Mark 2s better. I think they extend better. They also have a better sort of punch. They don't feel as blunted as the Mark 1s. Treble extension I think is better on the Mark 1s, but they're less sharp on the Mark 2s. So if you're looking for a more V-shaped sound, if you want a bit better bass, I would say, stick to the Mark IIs. Right. So now comparing them to the Monk Plus, so the Monk Plus sounds very thin in comparison. They feel thin and lifeless. So the Monk Plus have very little punch compared to the Mark 1. So if you just thought that the Monk Pluses had the very nimble, what's it called? Not nimble, very limp bass. You want bigger, blunt punch bass, and you want a more forward mid-range. You thought that the not the Willsound, the Monk Pluses sounded a bit too thin. The Mark 1s might do for you, especially if you thought that the Monk Pluses were too relaxed sounding, which I actually found a lot of people didn't really like. The Mark 1s is where it's at. Now comparing it to the video, not a very high standard I know, but the videos are in terms of bass, these have a lot more bass. It has a more sub bass. It has a bit more. It has a bit more defined punch. I feel bad for saying this, but it's just what it is. Mid range though, this I can. It's just there in the videos. It's very behind the mix. You can barely hear anything in the mid range in the videos, and treble is just there. Not much of it. There's not much definition in the bass, not in the bass, in the mids and the treble, especially compared to the Mark 1s. So if you thought the videos have too much bass, you want a lot more mid-range and you want some more sparkly treble, get the Mark 1s. Right. So if you've been watching this review for so long and you still don't know what the difference between earbuds and IEMs are, let me just say this. The difference between earbuds and IEMs are that the earbuds don't isolate. IEMs do. IEMs have this sort of silicon part which seals into your ear, so it'll isolate you from outside noise. Earbuds don't. They just sit in your ear. You've probably had to use them in the some 90s to 2000 eras, or even some before that. They've reduced in popularity in the recent years because of just how easier it is to just tune IEMs compared to earbuds, because of the less variance of like how earbuds sit and just the acoustics of earbuds in general. Right. Accessories wise, I forgot to mention, you'll be getting 3 pairs of black foams, 1 pair of these white foams, and this plastic case. And I'll say it again, these retail for 500,000 at the point time of review, or $35 US. Right, I think I covered everything. I'll leave what Brian thinks right about now, and like if you like the review, comment what you think, dislike it if you disliked it, subscribe if you want more content. Alright, see you next time.